No, there's not a
I can
quorum.
go.
It's there's a quorum. It's you, Derek America, and Mr. Van der Westhuizen.
Okay, so we're ready. I'm going to start the stream.
The other members are not there.
I don't see the other members yet, but I'll try and get a hold of them.
Can you please try and get hold of them? Then, anyway,
Member
is the
Smith is
department
here.
there?
I see.
Everyone?
Johan's not here.
Okay.
Good morning, Chairperson.
Good morning, Chairperson. Tafsir, sorry, you may start the recording, the stream. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zasman. Okay, without wasting any time, can I just for the roll call check the members who are there? My name is Matlodi Maseko. I'm the chairperson. Members?
Good morning, Chair. It's Derek America, member of the committee.
Good morning, Chair. Andrikus van der Westhuizen. Looking forward.
Good morning, Brett Heron.
Good morning, Daniel Smith.
Okay. Thank you very much, members. And from the department, who's leading?
Morning, Madam Chair. It's Minister Simmers here, present, and I'll ask my HOD to introduce the rest of the team for you. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, Chairperson, members. Jackie Sampson here, HOD for the Department of Human Settlements.
Good morning, HOD. Okay. We are not going to waste any time. Under the circumstances, I'm going to hand over to the department for their presentation. But before the presentation, is there anything, Minister, that you want to say before we start?
Madam Chair, I'll be very brief as my team has prepared a very well, I think, documented presentation. But I think what COVID-19 has clearly shown to us is the business of business as usual is gone, and all three spheres of government will now need to adapt to a new model of how we are going to move post-COVID. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm going to hand over to my HOD for the presentation.
Okay. Thank you very much, Minister. Over to you, HOD.
Thank you, Chairperson and members, and thank you to Minister Simmers for the information. I think this is not the correct presentation, but I'll just, my opening remarks, we've responded to the invitation from the Standing Committee, and we were required to brief the committee on the transitional residential units, which will be implemented as part of the reblocking of overcrowded areas in the Western Cape, the relocation of dense communities to secure land parcels not too far from their current place of residence. And the third aspect we're addressing is alternate building material to fast-track transitional residential areas. So I don't see the presentation.
Okay, are we getting sorted, Lizette?
Yes, Member Maseko. I'm just closing because I have quite a few open here. I'm just closing a few. Let me just see where it is, but it's here. I'll be screen sharing it with the members right now. Okay. Human settlements. Okay, here we go. No, man. Okay, members, the presentation should be screening now. Can you see it?
Okay.
Can you see it?
But can we all see it?
Yes. Thank you.
No.
Okay, Member Heron
Yes.
is not sorted.
Sorry, Chair. I
We
only see
all
it.
okay? Okay, HOD, is it the right one?
Yes, Chairperson, that's correct.
Okay, members, can you see the presentation, all of you?
No.
Yes.
Okay, Tazim, can you help Member Heron? Okay, HOD, you can continue as Tazir helps, the IT helps Member Heron, because the others, they say they can see it.
Thank you, Chairperson. I will proceed just by way of introduction. Next slide, please. On the 15th of March, President Ramaphosa declared the current COVID-19 a pandemic and subsequently declared a national disaster in terms of Act 57 of 202. In turn, the national departments were requested to initiate programs and issue directives and regulations under these respective portfolios to contain the spread of the virus. Our National Department of Human Settlements, as an intervention, have identified, amongst other things, the need to de-densify overcrowded areas as a way of containing the spread of the virus. And subsequent to that, nationally, 29 informal settlements were identified across the country, and the criteria for identifying them is more than 1,000 households in the settlement and more than 100 dwelling units per hectare as a density. So in the Western Cape, 3 settlements were identified, that being Denoon in Walnerton area, Kosovo in Philippi, and Khayelitsha. Together with those 3 identified, the National Department also sent the directive of Denoon. 1,500 households must be relocated, Kosovo 2,000 and Khayelitsha 3,000. The department, the Western Cape Department of Human Settlements, already had plans in the pipeline for 2 of the 3, so that's for Denoon and Kosovo. And these land parcels for the decanting of those overcrowded areas were already in close proximity within walking distance from the existing settlement, so almost adjacent to Denoon and Kosovo. Further to that, due to the scarcity of land to accommodate the 3,000 households within Khayelitsha, other land parcels were identified. So Itemba in the Blue Downs area was identified. It's currently owned by the National Department of Public Works. We have requested a power of attorney to procure the development rights. It was identified as suitable to accommodate households from Khayelitsha, so the 3,000 from Khayelitsha, as well as the airport precinct, the informal settlements along the N2 around the airport. Then the COVID-19 pandemic, coupled with Minister Sisulu's directive, has necessitated that our department immediately accelerate the plan. So I indicated that the projects were in the pipeline, but we're now looking at the identification and accelerating the plans to de-densify the overcrowded areas of Kosovo and Khayelitsha in order to combat the spread of the virus. We have developed implementation plans, and we work closely with the City of Cape Town as well as the Housing Development Agency Next slide, please. I must add that in parallel to the technical planning process, we've also engaged on a detailed stakeholder engagement plan. And we've had a series of meetings with the local community in the community of Dunoon. The engagements of the meetings were attended by the sub-council chairperson, ward committee members, the ward councillors and officials from the city, ourselves, our department, the Department of Health, as well as the Housing Development Agency. And the purpose of those engagements was to inform the Dunoon leaders of the proposed de-densification. The process, we kept them informed of the process, how far we are, and status of the project. So those continuous engagements were also necessary to continuously keep them informed. On the 20th of April, the National Minister of Human Settlements attended site, the location where the new settlement will be created. And that was also then attended by the MACO member for Human Settlements from the City of Cape Town, our Minister of Human Settlements, of course, Minister Simmers, and then the various representatives of the city and our department and the Housing Development Agency, as well as the Ward Council and other community leaders. We've also had engagements, next slide please, with adjacent property owners. And when I talk to the context of the Dunoon site, you'll see that it is located adjacent to an existing, or it's actually part of an existing industrial park, the Race Park. And we've had engagements with the Race Park property owners, the Ratepayers Association. One of the engagements was attended by the Premier, the Mayor of the city, Minister Simmers, the MACO member, as well as the Ward Councillor, and then the respective departments and officials. Again, that engagement, or those engagements, were to inform the Ratepayers Association, the Race Park and Ratepayers Association of the process and the proposed development. Thank you. And then if I go to the detail of the development, our approach was to look at the new design concept. And significant inroads have been made in terms of the provision of housing and housing opportunities and improved access to basic services. The challenge still remains the growth in the number of informal settlements, and also the number of households continuously grow in a particular informal settlement, and that obviously adds to the backlog in the housing demand and the housing provision. Based on the latest housing demand, approximately 100 billion rand is required to address this backlog. So it was important that we have an alternate approach to this, a new norm. And this, together with a shrinking economy, necessitated a different delivery model as well as funding model. So in response, our Western Cape Department is seeking to pilot a new approach to the informal settlements upgrading housing delivery in general. And we're using this pandemic as an opportunity to reform within the sector and to revamp and increase the acceleration, accelerate the speed at which we deliver. Next slide, please. And then this slide just shows a comparison to between the old way, still applying the emergency housing program and how it was delivered, and our new approach. So previously, rudimentary services were provided with one ablution facility for every 5 households. And the new approach is to look at one kitchen for each family and at least one ablution facility for 2 family sharing. Water standpipe provided 1 per 25 families, and now we are looking to provide 1 tap for 1 family. Previously, the requirements were that the shelter starts at 18 We are now providing a minimum of 24 square meters to 30 square meter units. We're reducing the maintenance costs through alternate technology, and I'll talk to that in detail later. We also looked at the infrastructure provision, and the previous programs resulted in sewage or sewer and stormwater pipeline blockages. And the new approach is looking at reducing that and improving the maintenance and obviously the costs of maintaining those that infrastructure. Intermunicipal services were provided previously, and that was prone to vandalism and wastage. We are looking at formalized municipal services linking to the existing infrastructure in the area. Previously, the unit typologies that were provided at a short lifespan. Informal structure, just the form or the typologies created slums, for example, Blikkiesdorp. And we are now looking at more durable and longer lifespan of the unit itself. So the material and the way it's constructed is more durable and also flexible to convert to a more permanent structure. So we're also looking at the current provision that can translate to a normal BNG that will meet the requirements of the normal BNG, and also perhaps a social housing unit, so that can be easily converted. Next slide, please. Then the prototypes or the type of typologies are demonstrated in the slides. We're moving away from the single-story single units. Can we move, please? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Chori.
Thank you. Am I breaking up? Am I audible? Thank you.
Yes,
so,
you're still audible. Go on.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think we've now skipped the slide or two. We need to go to slide 9, please. Previous one, thank you. So we're moving away from the singular corrugated iron unit typologies. We're moving towards multi-story blocks of residential units, so we can increase the density provision and also increase the efficiency and just the aesthetics of the units. There are alternative or different options available. And next slide, please. We're looking at also the singular story, and when you look at the context where these developments are located, but all of it will provide the minimum in terms of basic services and the change from rudimentary or shared service to at least or maximum 2 households sharing pollution facilities. And as I indicated, these units can be converted through the removal of internal walls to comply with the norms and standards of your normal subsidized housing unit, or PNG as we call it. In the conceptual layout, phase 1, the 1,500 units, is part of a larger site, 17 hectares site. We're only using 2 hectares for now. And that looks at the layout plan that provides for the 1,500 reticulation of roads and basic services that can link with current services and current road layout. And then, as I indicated, the units, the minimum provision for each unit, and that can be converted through the removal of internal walls, or just a slight change in the arrangement of the configuration of the units. We're also applying this in Kailicha, Silvertown at the moment, and that is that program or that process is further, it's advanced further. So we're also looking at applying it already elsewhere. So it's not just in Noon, we're already implementing this elsewhere. We've also implemented it elsewhere in the Western Cape, to Kertel, for example. So can we move please to the next slide and the next one? Next slide please. So the specifications of each unit, as I indicated, we looked at alternate building material and the method of construction that meets the following criteria. We're looking at the thermal performance, the acoustics, because it's units, it's multiple units in a building. We're also looking at the acoustics. Resistance of water penetration, it obviously has to meet minimum requirements for that. Energy usage, condensation, high durability, so it's a more durable unit, less maintenance costs, and then fire resistant for 1 hour at least. Further to that, the design unit is also consistent with minimum internal size, so at least 24 square meters to 30, which is the norms and standards for emergency housing. So we've increased it from 18 to 24 square meters minimum. Each unit will include a bathroom, shower and toilet. And then each unit will also include the supply installation of a kitchen sink and a cupboard within the unit. And then we also ensure that it meets the requirements for Sandstein 400, and we also have a certification from a practicing structural engineer, registered engineer, in terms of soil suitability or stability at the site, structural stability, plumbing, glazing, and then the A19 roof certification is also provided. Thank you. That is a conclusion. I just want to conclude by saying that the stakeholder engagement is ongoing. As we progress with the process and the program for implementation, we ensure that we consult with the interested and affected parties. And we also, as part of the whole of government approach, look at using those engagements as opportunity to inform, educate people on how to prevent the spread of the virus. So the whole of government approach, we're looking at health, economic sector, humanitarian relief, and through those engagements going forward, we'll apply the provincial government approach on looking at it holistically. And also specifically from human settlements point of view, we're also looking at, excuse me, the de-densification process, a reblocking process, educating people on why we have to clear certain areas and reblock certain areas and create pathways for emergency access. That people are educated, and it's a long-term sustainable solution, and it's not just an intervention now, but that is the way we're going to conduct our business going forward, just to create a more healthier living environment. Thank you, Chairperson and members.
Thank you very much, HOD. Members, I didn't start by talking to the do's and don'ts. I think by now we are into the system already that we know how to conduct ourselves throughout the meetings. So I'm going to start by opening the questions from the members. HOD, if you can do me a favor of, as we get the questions and clarities needed, because it's not a huge number of the members, so we can engage as a question is being asked and the member wants more clarity pertaining to the same question, and we'll take it that way. Members, I don't see any hands from my side. Is there a member that wants to ask a question?
Yeah, yes, please, Derek.
Member America.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Thank you, Ms. Sampson, for the presentation. I have two questions, Ms. Sampson. One, there was reference made in the presentation about you having an engagement with the Race Park Ratepayers Association. They have raised certain concerns. What were those concerns, and what were they resolved? Or and secondly, at the same sort of engagement with the ratepayers, mention is made of a fourth option. What is referred to as a fourth option? And lastly, were there any financial sort of allocation made to the department by National Human Settlements Department to fast track and finance this particular reblocking exercise? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member America. Over to you, HOD.
Thank you, Chairperson. I will answer the last question and I'll ask Pilar Maisela to answer the first two. So with regard to the financial contribution, no additional funding was received from the National Department of Human Settlements for this project or any other COVID-19 interventions. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson and members. My name is Pilar Maisela, Chief Director responsible for implementation in the department. I will then respond to the questions that were asked by the member. The Race Park Owners Association raised concerns regarding the security, regarding safety, and lastly, regarding loss of industrial land. In 2018, the department purchased the property within the Race Park area, measuring 17 hectares in extent, of which 11 hectares is developable. This is in very close proximity to the existing industrial activities, and their concerns were that if we are now bringing in the residential component, it may compromise the security of their businesses, and also they raise the issue of safety if now the residents will have to share the roads with the traffic. What about the safety of the community and the residents that would be bringing in here? And lastly, the loss of industrial land. They were arguing that we need to make sure that we create more jobs, and losing industrial land to residential would then compromise this objective. As the head of department has presented, we had numerous engagements with the Race Park Owners Association, and the purpose of which was to really try and find a compromise and to also allay their fears. We brought to their attention that whilst we understand their concerns around security, safety, and loss of industrial land, we need to be mindful of the fact that we need to create a balancing act versus the need for creating job opportunities, and also the need of improving the lives and the livelihoods of the people that are living in informal settlements within Dunoon. It is estimated that there's about 9,000 to 10,000 informal structures in Dunoon, and it's overcrowded, and we therefore need to respond. Also, the issue of the COVID-19 has further necessitated us to respond and make sure that we de-densify. We then looked at our conceptual development framework, which we had drafted, which obviously was not accepted by them when we presented it to them. There were iterations to that framework, and we ended up with what we refer to as the Concept 4. Basically, the Concept 4 looked at mitigating the issues that they had raised around security. We then proposed that we put a wall that would separate the residential area from the industrial and businesses. That would also ensure that the issue of safety is catered for. Around the loss of industrial land, we also agreed as part of this fourth concept, option that we presented to them, that we will re-look at where we place the business sites within the broader development. You'd recall that when we bought the land in 2018, we wanted to develop mixed use development there. That implies we're planning to have residential as well as some business and industrial sites. So we then replace the industrial sites so that it's closer to the existing sites, and it also creates a buffer between the residential and the existing business sites. And one other thing that they demanded was a third exit, emergency exit at the back over the existing railway line, because they were saying during the riots, they can't get in and out, or rather it's difficult for them to get in and out. They would therefore request that we look at providing that third exit over the railway line. We then indicated to them that that falls outside of our mandate. It's an issue that PRASA would have to be brought in and actually agreed to, and we therefore undertook to facilitate the engagements between us, PRASA, and themselves to look at the possibility of this emergency exit at the back. So that's where we're at, and that's what really the fourth compromise is looking at, a wall for security and safety, and also releasing some of the land for industrial purposes, for small businesses, and creating that as a buffer. Thank you, Chairperson.
Okay. Thank you very much. Members, Member America, is there any clarity or you are answered?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. I just want to respond to what the HOD stated about the financial contribution by the National Department. It is to be known that the Dunoon development is the smallest of the 3 identified areas for reblocking, and it is regrettable. I mean, it's disappointing that there will be no financial contribution from the National Department, who as a result of a response to the COVID-19 pandemic, initiated this particular, or fast-tracked this particular process. Now, my question is, Chair, is that how will this process impact upon the current budget of the department? Because where's the money going to come from? That's basically it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. HOD.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you for the question, Member America. We have applied to the City of Cape Town for USDG funding. It does meet the requirements of that funding. So we've received funding already for the planning and the design for all 3 sites, and partial approval for the balance or the implementation of the development. So we are still engaging with the city and getting the balance of the funding through the USDG.
Okay, HOD, just for clarity, what you're saying is that there's no any impact on your already budget that you are going to use. There's no any project that is going to be delayed because you are going to implement this transitional housing projects.
Chairperson, what I'm saying is we haven't utilized our HSDG funding yet for this project, or for these 3 projects.
Okay. Members? Member Heron?
Yes, yes, Chairperson, are you ready for me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I have a number of questions about the Dunoon site in particular. The first is that this site in Race Park was initially identified or purchased to resettle the Siyahlala settlement along the railway line. So is that still the project when you talk about densifying Dunoon, or this is the Sectional now not part of this Dunoon race park development? And then what happens to Sectional? So as I understand it, the department is applying to build either 115 or 246 units in Race Park. There are about 500 dwellings along or part of the Sectional informal settlement. So I'm not understanding how this Race Park can serve a dual purpose of resettling those informal settlements or structures along in Sectional along the railway line and also de-densifying Dunoon. That's my first question. Secondly, when you purchase land in the industrial park, the province or the HDA who purchased the land on behalf of the province immediately becomes a member of the Owners Association for the race park and liable for levies that are part of that race park and to the rules that apply in the race park. The Constitution determines what kind of development can take place in that park. Now, as I understand it, the department is saying that there's objections raised by the race park owners, and the Constitution is clear that without the race park owners' consent, no structure can be developed in that park, and no consolidation of urban can take place in that park. So, I mean, it seems to me that the department's going to great lengths to de-densify or to relocate or to build a TRA in an industrial park. And if you've been there, I have been there, it is an industrial park with factories and stuff. It doesn't really make sense to have people living there. And you're avoiding using a site on the corner of Potsdam Road, which is already earmarked by the City of Cape Town in 2014 for a TRA. So why go to all these great lengths when you already have a site on public transport just down the road that's already identified for a TRA by the city in 2014? That's my second question. My third question is this concept of replacing industrial land within the site. Now, if the site is not entirely within the industrial park, why, and the department is preparing to allocate some of those sites for industrial purposes, why don't you use the industrial purposes or locate the industrial purposes within the industrial park, which is what is intended, and the residential outside of the industrial park? So the question really is the entire site within the industrial park, or is part of it in the industrial park and part of it is outside the industrial park? In which case, why isn't the residential being located outside of the industrial park? I hope that's clear. And then my fourth question is about the planning process. Now, I know that the department has applied for rezoning of the land so that they can put residential on it. And this is where the objection of the Owners Association comes in. But the City Planning Tribunal recently declined an application in Pardon Island for a mixed-use development. And their reasons for doing so was, and they cited that the loss of industrial land was important. So you have the planning authority being the City of Cape Town and the Planning Tribunal refusing a private application in Pardon Island, which was for mixed use, industrial, commercial and residential, including affordable housing. And the Planning Tribunal saying, no, industrial land is important. And the City Trade and Industry Department actually objected to the loss of industrial land. So I don't understand this contradiction where on the one hand, we are happy to forgo industrial land, but in another part of the city, we're not. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Heron. HOD?
Thank you, Chairperson. I'll respond to some of the questions and I'll ask Phila Maisela to respond to the balance. Firstly, the land was acquired in 2018 by the Housing Development Agency for Human Settlement Development. That is the mandate of the HDA. So, and the land was in the market, it was on sale because it could not be sold for industrial development. We have purchased the property through the HDA. Then with regards to the planning process, the reason why we've selected this site as opposed to the other sites that's available also in close proximity to the noon is because there are certain rights in place already, and the rezoning application will go quicker than your normal process where it is zoned for agricultural purposes. So the property is zoned industrial, and that's one of the reasons why it was selected, because it's, in our view, low-hanging fruit, as opposed or compared to the status or the development rights that the other properties have. The other properties, I just want to indicate to Member Heron, is still in the pipeline for development, but because we had to move with speed, we looked at the site which is easier to procure the development rights because of the current industrial zoning. I will now ask Pilar to talk to Siyahlahla community and how they are accommodated, as well as the concerns or the consent from the race park owners and how we are dealing with that as part of the planning process or statutory process. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairperson, members. The Siyahlahla and Soweto communities, they will form part of the relocation. There's about 505 people along the railway reserve, and we intend to relocate those people as part of the 1,500 that's planned for Danun. You are quite correct, Member Heron, that there was an application that was submitted in December by the city to use the 3 land parcels to resettle the Siyahlahla and Soweto beneficiaries. And the intention at the time was to split the 505 community, and that was as per the mediation agreement, that half of that community would move to the Race Park Owners Association. We would move to the land that we've acquired, and the other half, there was an agreement reached with PRASA that PRASA would make available a land on the sand dunes, which they'd already fenced off, so that we could then move the other half there. The reason why we didn't want to move everyone then onto that site was that we didn't want to necessarily sterilize the land, because we had planned for a mixed-use development. However, COVID-19 happened, and we've had to then accelerate, and then the decision was that let's then rather move all 505 people to the property, because there is an opportunity to do that as part of the 1,500 that we want to de-densify from within Danun. And then in terms of the Race Park Owners Association and the Constitution, yes, you are quite correct. A portion of the property that we bought is governed by the Constitution. Not all the 17 hectares that we bought is governed by that Constitution. So there are certain parcels that fall outside of the Constitution, and the intention has always been for us to kickstart the process by establishing the TRA within the areas that do not necessarily fall within the Constitution. And this is all part of the options that were presented to the Race Park Owners Association. You're asking a question: if we were planning to also have business and industrial use within the park, why aren't we then rather keeping the existing industrial parcel and the size and not excuse me, bring in residential? We have managed to propose what we refer to as a compromise by saying we would reserve a portion of the industrial site that forms part of the land that we purchased in 2018, so that we can still continue with industrial activities. But we, as I indicated earlier, we need to create this balancing act, the need to preserve the industrial land and create jobs, but also the need to uplift the lives of the people that are living in squalor, that have been living in squalor for the couple of decades at the very least. So that's the background to that. And in terms of the consent, we do have You're also quite right. The Constitution states that there should be a consent by the Race Park Owners Association, and we do have a consent letter that was signed on the 30th of November 2018. I mean, we can make that available as proof. In fact, if there was an opportunity, Chairperson, for me to share my screen, I would also just show the members what the plans are around this particular development, but perhaps maybe we could submit that as a site. But there was a consent that was granted by the Race Park Owners Association, signed 30 November 2018. Thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Member Heron?
Yes, please. Can I follow up?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. I'm sorry, my line is the connection is poor, so can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I have two follow-up questions. I mean, the HOD talked about the ease of rezoning as one of the reasons, but as I indicated, I don't understand that it's easier to rezone this industrial site when you have the owners association objecting. When, as I said, just down the road on the corner of Potsdam and Blauberg roads, you have a 20-hectare site which is owned by the city, so they won't object, and which is already earmarked for a TRA in 2014. So why are we doggedly pursuing industrial land, which we must acknowledge is valuable to the economy, when we have a site that was earmarked for incremental development in the vicinity, which is larger and which is owned by the city? So you're not going to have the owners objecting to the rezoning. I can't accept that it is easier to rezone in the race park where you have to negotiate with the owners of an association, as opposed to a site that was identified 6 years ago for housing purposes and is owned by the city. My second question is about the 17 hectares that Pilani was talking about, and that part of it is within the industrial park. Now, my understanding is that there's a large portion of that 17 hectares that's a wetland. So what portion of that site, 17 hectares, is wetland, and what part of that forms outside of the industrial park? Where are you going to allow industrial development if you have to also protect a wetland? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hila?
Yes, Chairperson?
Yes.
Chairperson, may I just very quickly share my screen so that I can just explain where everything is in relation to, and I think it would assist Member Heron to also understand better just what the plans are for the site. Is that in order?
Yes, that is in order.
I had this thing just now.
Okay.
Hmm? Can everybody see my screen?
We just saw a flickering light.
It's flickering. Let me try again. Apologies for that. I'm going to try. Can you see now?
Yes.
No. Okay. Who can see?
Derek.
I cannot see. Member Heron cannot see.
I can't see.
Yeah.
It's probably still loading. No?
I see a heap of sand or a nice dune.
Very nice June. There's a nice and June.
Let me try one last time. If I don't come right, I will have to just talk to it then. Can you see it now?
No, we can't. We see your email.
We see all the documents. Yes. Here we go.
We can see you, Spila. We can see.
Okay,
Yes.
Fantastic. So let me just minimize.
Sorry, Chair,
and
I
make it.
can't see it. So can Pila just pause until Tafsir helps me?
Okay, let me just talk to it. Okay, let me just talk to it then Member Heron.
Keep it on the screen so long,
of the
Pila. Pila, please keep it on the screen
Sorry?
while you're talking to it. Please keep it on the screen while you're talking to it, because as Member Heron indicated, he just being assisted on that side.
Okay, is it still on the screen?
Yeah.
Yes, it's still
Okay,
you can.
fantastic.
I'm sorry, I'm not, Chairperson, I'm not getting assistance. I'm getting messages from Tafsir saying it's now displayed. Well, it's not displayed on my screen.
Okay, Member America, can you see?
Yes, for sure, I can see. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Andrikas?
Yes, Chair, I do see it, but I would love it if it could be not in presentation mode, but on screen mode, which will make the picture bigger on our computers.
Okay.
We now see the main slide and then the next slide as you normally have on your own computer and not on the screen.
Okay.
It's showing full on
There
my
it is.
side, but maybe.
There it is. There it
Okay.
is.
Yeah,
Thank
there
you.
it is. Fine, you Member Heron?
Yes,
Member
Chairperson.
Heron?
Are you
Yes.
still in the dark?
I'm still in the dark. I've got Tafsir on the line. He's trying to help me, but we're not finding the slides. Just give me 1 minute while I talk to him.
Chairperson,
Okay.
it's Lizette. I think I'm in the same boat as Member Heron, so I think it actually screens for some persons and for some persons. Yeah. So I understand what Member Heron is explaining. I can't see the presentation either.
Okay. So how do we?
Chairperson, sorry. Tafsir suggested that I leave the session and come back. So can you just give me 2 minutes to do that?
Yes, I was going to suggest.
Okay, we'll
Okay.
wait for you, Member. It's okay.
Thank you.
So remember, it's the fourth industrial revolution. It comes with its own packages. Patience. If you have never bought one in Pick and Pay, you better go and get it in Checkers.
Chairperson, I am back in, but I still don't see the slides.
You still cannot see the slide.
No.
Okay.
Is Pila able to load them into the files? Because I was following the presentation from the files earlier.
Okay, I can do that. Let me try.
Okay.
Chair van der Westhuizen.
Yes, Chair. Yes,
Can I
member.
just say, I see on my screen that you and Honourable Smith, Honourable America and myself, we've got little red dots if we go to participants next to our faces and names, whereas Honourable Heron has got a green a dot with a tick inside. And I wonder if that couldn't give the ICT staff, some guidance as to why. And Lizette has also got the same profile or the same classification, if I may call it like that, by having a green dot next to her name?
I don't know, but I see them with the red dots with the rest of us on my side.
It seems it's only the red dots that can see the presentation.
Yeah, they are on red now.
Yeah, Chairperson, I changed member Erin's status to an attendee presenter.
Okay.
Shamise can just change my status and it will be sorted.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Lizette.
Thanks for the observation, Honourable van der Westhuizen.
Yeah, we appreciate you. We really appreciate you. Great.
So what shall we call Honourable Heron's status? Was he a guest?
No, he's an attendee.
Currently,
now.
yeah, currently member Erin's an attendee, and now I think he's an attendee.
Okay, there we go. Member Heron was sorted.
No, it says I've got a notice here saying you're an attendee. You can chat and facilitate the meeting. But that's it.
Please don't facilitate. I'll do that one, but you can chat. Can you see the slide now, Member Heron?
I'm afraid not, Chairperson.
Well,
okay, Chairperson, I can see the slide now. So mine is fixed. Maybe it takes some time, Member Heron. I'm making you attendee again. Somehow your status change. Tafsir, can you maybe assist? Is Tafsir?
Tafsir, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, can you change Member Heron to be attendee because it seems he's a guest.
Chairperson, the slides come up. Thanks so much.
Cool.
Okay, and the rest of us
yay.
Okay, we can see now. Member Heron, you're still covered.
Yes, I'm on and I can see the slide. Thank you.
Okay, go on, Mrs. Maxella.
Thanks, Chairperson. So the slide. Can I continue?
Yes.
Okay. So the slide shows the area that was purchased in 2018 within the red boundary. And as well, we've layered the environmentally sensitive areas. As you can see by my mouse, that is a big area that is sort of like declared to be environmentally sensitive. That's a no-go. That little section in the middle there has been transformed, and I think we don't think that it's performing any functions as a wetland. It's as a result of a stormwater drainage that comes through from the Dorenbach side. So we have engaged with our colleagues at DETP, and who have also pretty much confirmed the same, but we will obviously have to stay away from this area on the western side. And the developable area, if you exclude the area on the western side, is then 11 hectares. So that means all that area within on the eastern side of the purple line, that purple line is basically a flood line. On the eastern side of that purple line is developable, and it measures 11 hectares in extent. And Member Heron, the 3 sites that you were referring to where we were planning to relocate the Yahlala communities is those sites indicated by that I'm indicating there with the mouse, and that's obviously Potsdam Road. So those were the sites that we were initially in discussion with the city, we were earmarking to relocate the Yahlala community to. And the reason for that was that we didn't want to necessarily sterilize the entire area because we had planned to do a formal mixed-use development. So if I can then just go, so Member Heron, that is the consent that was given by the Race Park Development Owners Association. You can see signed on the 30th of March 2018. So on the basis of this, then we proceeded with our plans to plan for that area for a mixed-use development, which would have a residential component, some light industrial as well, as well as business use. So this is the first or the second concept that we came up with. You can see the area that is in orange is what is now zoned as industrial. The area in yellow falls outside the Race Park Owners Association's constitution, as well, obviously, as the green area. That area in yellow is currently zoned agriculture, and the reason why it's zoned agriculture is because the owner didn't act on the rights that were granted previously, and therefore it reverted automatically to the original use, which was agricultural use. But the intention is also to submit for a rezoning application to reinstate the status to enable us to develop mixed-use development there. You will see, as our initial concept, we had reserved that slither there for industrial, so that to create a buffer between the existing industrial sites and the proposed TRA. However, in conversations with the Race Park Owners Association, they indicated that there's already a panel beating shop in the corner there, and how are we going to deal with the issue of separation between residential and non-residential. That then resulted in this concept, for which we see as a compromise where we're saying that let's then keep certain land parcels outside of this and reserve that for industrial. We have since even talked to our traffic engineers to say, let's perhaps realign even that border, that boundary wall there, and so that it aligns with Copper Close and into Tyrrell Road. So there is another version that the traffic engineers and the town planners are working on. But what this shows is that we have said, we understand that you're saying there's a need for industrial land, this notwithstanding that the fact that this land has been lying vacant for the past 10 years or 12 years or so without any takers, without anybody actually showing interest on acquiring the property. But we've said we will then reserve a portion of that so that you can continue with industrial development, whilst we then continue with our transitional area and also formal development within the area, within the purple line, flood line area. And the red line there denotes obviously the proposed boundary wall, physical wall that we want to put, again, to deal with the issue of security, as well as the safety issue that they have raised. So this is the concept plan. They said they would consider, or rather the members that we presented to, which was the chairperson of the Race Park Owners Association, and I think there were other two members, they indicated they would consider this option. However, they wanted, I'm not sure if you can see this slide, they wanted assurance that they would be given that emergency exit denoted by that black arrow, which is at the back. Currently, they've got an informal access over that railway reserve, which PRASA has indicated is illegal. So we undertook to facilitate a process where we can assist them to get approval so that they can have that emergency exit. I think I'll stop there, member chairperson, if that is okay. And obviously, just one last thing from my side, you can see on the eastern side, that is the proposed layout for Dorenbach as per the city's plans. Because linked to the de-densification, we would want the city to immediately go in and start the reblocking and the in-situ upgrading of Dorenbach, which is east of our site. I think I'll end up there for now, Chairperson.
Okay. Thank you very much. Member Heron.
Chairperson, I'm not going to follow up. The slides didn't move for me, so I only had one slide. So I'm just asking if Pila can again put them into the file so that I can see them at a later stage. I'd have to just, I assume that the slides are moving.
Okay. Okay. Pilar, is that in order?
Yes, Chairperson, it's in order. We will provide the slides through you so that you can distribute to the members.
Okay. Thank you very much. Member Andrikas, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Chair, I must share with Honourable Heron, initially when, if people say we decided to concentrate on this site because it would be the easiest to rezone or the quickest, then, immediately one is a little bit, critical because, residential development is a long-term thing. And once you've developed and once you've put people there, it cannot easily be undone. And therefore, I'm grateful for the greater detail that we got regarding the development, etc. Although I don't know if it really answered all Honourable Heron's concerns in this regard. My main issue is about the densification, and I accept that we need to stem urban sprawl and that greater density is required. But then moving to greater density developments requires a number of issues to be addressed that we don't experience in developments with freestanding RDP houses, as communities have almost come to accept as the norm. And I'm referring here to the increased need for public open spaces, for parks, the need for paved surfaces when there are just suddenly hundreds of feet moving over the same piece of land. And then also, I'm always concerned about the future when these communities develop economically, as we do hope, that's the aim that we're all working for or towards. And once these people start having vehicles that they need to park at night close at home, also with the 3-story developments, I'm thinking of disabled beneficiaries or people that may become disabled in time, over time. And then what's needed, and I'm just afraid that human settlements might walk away, and then it becomes the city's challenge to enforce land management regulations, because I've seen in such developments people want to put up carports, window houses, etc., which they then need to share with others. So my one question is, how does the ownership work? Up to now, with the 2-story developments, we've seen that both the ground floor and the first floor belong to the same family. But once you go 3 stories, it seems almost as if it would be a title deed kind of development. So if you would be so kind to just expand on what is your vision in that regard. And then lastly, Chair, these kinds of higher density developments are not new to the city of Cape Town. And unfortunately, the experience has not always been positive. Unfortunately, this is the kind of development that I personally associate with urban decay and with some of our gangster hotspots. And I'm just wondering, what is the vision of the department that would make this development different from what we've seen from the developments of the 1960s? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member. HOD.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for the questions, Member van der Westhuizen. First and foremost, the Denoon site is a well-located site, good access to road and public transport infrastructure. It is well located in terms of economic opportunities as well as the social facilities in the area. And the reason why the site was selected, it is to minimize the displacement of social and economic networks that exist for those Denoon residents. So we won't displace them out of that context and the current networks. And when we look at the development of the entire site, the 17 hectares, as Pilar indicated, it is an integrated development and making provision for all different types of land uses to ensure that it's a sustainable development. Yes, we may relocate people temporarily, but it is going to be a permanent residential development with all the associated uses that has currently has good access to social economic transport opportunities. And then with regards to the densification and what we've learned from the past is that you cannot provide residential without the other facilities. And as I indicated already, we're providing other facilities. The use of the land or the property or the site for other uses and how we curtail informal extensions is through the design. There are very good examples that we've already applied higher density, even higher than this. Joe Slovo Langa, for example, through the design, and in some cases the envelope of the building is the boundary of the property, so that prevents extension because there's communal property, and in that instance in Joe Slovo Langa, the surrounding property owners or where the shared ownership of common spaces, that prevents any illegal structures or illegal uses of that common space because people take communal ownership. And again, it is a way of communicating and how we ensure homeowners, just informing them and consumer education, homeowners education upfront and during the process. It remains the responsibility of any local authority to ensure that there is no illegal land uses. And yes, it may be difficult for the City of Cape Town, but the approval of this is through the City of Cape Town. So we also have to comply with their norms and standards when we do the development or implement it. And the city will look at ways and means to manage the maintenance of it and look at the use rights and ensure that there's no illegal land uses and so forth. So that is how we deal with it. It's an integrated development. I'm not sure if Pilar wants to add through you, Chairperson.
Okay, can go on. Pilar?
Hi, sorry, Chairperson. No, I don't have much to add, except to just reiterate the fact that we will be putting together a management plan. We are in discussions with the City of Cape Town, similar to how we are managing our other TRAs in the areas of Delft, where we've got dedicated resources that looks at cleaning the area, collecting the rubbish, and so forth. So we are certainly looking at that. On the issue of title, how do we deal with 3-story buildings? For now, we will not be looking at the transfer of the unit. So we will pretty much be managing it in a similar way that social housing is managing their developments, albeit being a watered sort of like down version. But the intention is to certainly look at a way of transferring title in long term. Even the way in which the design is done, it's in modular fashion where you've got two 24 square meter units that can be consolidated and merged to form 140 square unit in the long run. But the challenge within the BNG space is the issue of sectional title, and we are in discussions with National Department to find a way to enable us to transfer title to develop sectional title units for BNG, because land is not elastic. We're running out of well-located land. We cannot have the luxury of building one house per plot. It's something that they've got an appetite to, and that's also demonstrated by the fact that the current subsidy quantum actually allows us to build 3-story walk-up units. But what is still lagging behind is the issue of sorting out the sectional title issue, because the moment you go 3-story, obviously you have to open a sectional titles register. But that's what we're working towards, and we're hoping that in time we would be in a position to influence policy so that there can be reforms in that regard. I hope that answers the members' questions. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Member Andrikas, any follow-up?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can I just ask, if we eventually go to sectional title, would each building, and I presume there would be 6 beneficiaries per unit, would each then form its own little body corporate, or would the whole development be run as one body corporate with common areas? Because my impression is just that sectional title only works under very, very rare circumstances. And even then it's often problematic, and you need a high level of knowledge of the sectional title legislation, etc., in order for this to keep up the standards and to provide for long-term maintenance and things like that, which normally I don't associate with the economic sphere in which this development would probably be taking place. So if the officials could just expand on their vision for sectional title in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Member. Pilar?
Thanks, Chairperson. Yes, Member, that's the long-term plan. So we're still in discussion with our colleagues within the sector to just find a model that will work, because there is a realization that we need to go high density. And how do we then do that whilst living up to the ideals of security of tenure, which means that there must be titles. So that's something that we're working towards long term. There are means and ways to do that by lobbying the various authorities that are responsible, for example, for how the sectional titles are governed. I will make an example with the issue of the VAT. We were able as a sector to lobby Treasury to say that all subsidized housing must not attract VAT. And we were able to win that. And as of today, we don't pay VAT. So similarly, I think that approach, assisted by our national colleagues, it's a conversation that needs to be held to say, how do we within the lower income strata enable sectionalization to happen? It would obviously require us to adopt a different approach to the way in which your upmarket or high or middle to high income earners are currently managing sectional title for the reasons that you've stated, Member. So it's still a long-term plan, but for now we would continue managing this through the social housing approach, but in time we're saying there would be an opportunity for us to do that as soon as we've ironed out the issues around the sectional title for the income bracket 0 to 3,501. Thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Member Andrikas, are you sorted?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, Member Smith? Member Smith,
Chair,
are you still online?
Yes, I'm here. Chair, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Members, is there anyone who still wants another bite of the questions? Member Heron?
Yes, Chair.
Do you still need another bite of questions, or are you okay?
I'm okay, thank you.
Okay. Member America?
I'm good, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. HUD, the last question from me, the informal settlements, and it's not only in Danone, across the board, for this transitional housing for the foreign nationals, because I tend to believe that the beneficiaries are going to be the qualifying beneficiaries. What is the plan from the department and the city in accommodating them? What is going to happen?
Chairperson, the approach is the same. We may not provide housing subsidy for non-South African citizens, but there are products that we deliver, service sites, which they will pay for, they can purchase. Rental options can be provided. So there are other products that we can deliver, but it won't be a fully subsidized house or even a housing opportunity like we do provide for South African citizens.
Yeah, what I'm trying to find out is what criteria are you going to use? Because for the rental, there is the list, beneficiary list, that is the first come, first serve, and those are people that are not on the list at all. To a certain extent, are we not shortchanging the beneficiaries that have been waiting for a very long time to on their list? And how do you allocate the numbers that you don't end up having about 60% to accommodate them with, because they also, it will be that you allocate a certain budget that you are going to use and use 40% for those people that are waiting for years and years to be accommodated.
Chairperson, our priority remains firstly South African citizens and those who are on the waiting list the longest, the vulnerable. So we still apply the prioritization in the allocation of opportunities. We also look at non-qualified South African citizens that don't qualify because they have received a subsidy before, have benefited before, or they exceed the income bracket. So we also provide alternate products for them, and in some instances they also have to rent or pay or purchase the property or contribute somehow. But our priority remains South African citizens, and the different categories of prioritization we will apply as well.
Actually, I do understand that. The reality is they are there already. And what's going to happen to, because I'm asking this, that we end up with a scenario where you have relocated people, there's still huge numbers. And when you go in there, you find that there's a huge percentage of the foreign nationals that are still staying where you were saying that is not the habitable piece of land. So does the department have a strategy in dealing with that challenge in the whole province? Because it's not like it's in the city only, it's a problem that is there even in the rural towns.
Jefferson, with the informal settlements, we provide basic services and provide interventions or infrastructure where beneficiaries, it's not directly linked to a beneficiary. So it's applied to a settlement, and where we upgrade the services in a settlement as a whole. So in many of those settlements, there are foreign nationals or non-South African citizens, and they then continue to live in those areas. It's where we have to select beneficiaries or apply a subsidy that is directly linked to a beneficiary that has to qualify in terms of criteria, where we then prioritize, and we go ahead and then we prioritize in terms of how we select beneficiaries. So in informal settlements, yes, they're not evicted, for lack of a better word, from an informal settlement. They continue to stay, and we apply intervention measures in a settlement as a whole.
Okay, So when you report on the upgraded informal settlements, how do you record those do you record across the board that in this informal settlement, how many families received that upgrading, or how do you record that? Because it's a little bit of a blurry line of the reporting of what did you implement when you say upgrading of informal settlement, and then you say you count it on the housing opportunities versus the target that you set in your APP.
Chairperson, you are correct in saying that there is a grey line. So when we do profiling of an informal settlement, we count the number of households. We do record in most cases, the number of qualifiers or non-qualifiers, but in some instances we just do a household count or the number of households in a specific settlement. We look at the provision of services, what is the ratio of number of households as opposed to number of toilets, easy electricity and so forth. And then the intervention or the upgrading is where we upgrade the basic services as opposed to a formal structure. But where a formal structure is, and obviously ownership, or where a household is relocated to an ownership or structure, or any other subsidies applied where it must be linked to an approved beneficiary, then obviously you have to qualify.
Okay. Okay, members, is there the rep? Can I release the department? But before that, Minister Simmons, we'll appreciate to hear your voice.
No, thank you, Chairperson. I've listened to the members and each member's inputs and questions very tentatively, because I do appreciate each member's participatory role in the oversight which the Standing Committee exercises over what my department does. And in conclusion, I just wanted to make 3 points, Honourable Chairperson and members present at today's meeting. Firstly, if anything that we are observing through this COVID-19 exercise and what each department is doing, and more so even my own department, it's that all 3 spheres of government actually need to start working much closer together. It's because ultimately, post-COVID-19, we will need to address the issue of which legislation is actually hindering service delivery and which has been doing it for the last 20 odd years. That is a reality on all 3 spheres of government, just as much as certain bylaws and regulatory frameworks are also prohibiting my department from accelerating what we actually want to do as a department within certain municipalities' boundaries. Secondly, Madam Chair, and we spent a fair number of time focusing on the noon and the various options and so forth. And we have 2 options, and this isn't just focusing on the noon, but the principle is the same, what's stemming from the noon. As a government, and even as a local government, if you are a council, you have 2 options. It's one, we can allow land which is earmarked for development to be invaded and lose all of its value. That is the question that the key stakeholders in the noon also had to ask themselves when we started engaging them. Secondly, or we can actually all work together as stakeholders to create much more decent neighborhoods, which doesn't impact the value of the surrounding property owners. In both instances, that is very important, not only in the noon, but also in other sites for my department. But Madam Chair, in conclusion, what is the positive contribution which we as a department are doing and plan to do through our developments? And that's something that each member needs to ask themselves after today. It's one that we improve the value of the land as we will provide a formal development where we as a Human Settlements Department lead communities into human settlements of the future. That's why we've deviated just being called the Department of Housing. We are long past that. But secondly and finally, Madam Chair, we are also curbing and contributing against the threat of land invasions, which you would have seen currently, even during COVID. It's becoming the biggest threat to all three spheres of government. So we can pussyfoot around certain issues, try to throw certain frameworks to prevent developments in communities, and as government we can throw our hands in there and allow further land invasions, or we can be proactive as government. And that is what I think after today's session with the Standing Committee we all need to think of. We all talk of spatial transformation. We all speak of being 25 years into a democracy, but we also need to reflect on, in the democratic dispensation, what legislation is hindering the ultimate objective in building a true rainbow nation where we all belong. But firstly, where we all belong means we first start with our own people, proudly South Africans. Then we look at the rest. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I think you nailed it with the issue of the land invasion that is problematic across the province, if not across the country. But we need to accept that the policies that have been there, and the members can agree with me that the housing policy that has been there since 1994 is not working for the communities in this year. And it's going to be worse for the coming year. And COVID-19 has taught us that as a government, what we are implementing is not what is needed out there, because of some of the engagement when you ask the land invaders is the issue of how many people are living together in the small space that is there. And COVID-19 saying that we need to have as much space, we need to have isolation. It sort of tells us that what is it that we are not doing correct as the government, what is it that we are excellent in as the government. But it's work in progress, and thank you very much from the department for everything that they're doing to add value, to also change the lives of the communities of Western Cape. It's appreciated from the Standing Committee, but it's one of the departments that the communities, they say thank you for one day with the keys and the space that they occupy, but after it won't be thank you. The non-appreciated department is Department of Human Settlements. So thank you, Minister, and the department officials, HOD, thank you very much for being with us today. And members, it's going to be up to you if we can break for 5 minutes or we can continue with the resolutions. I'll take guidance from you. Any comment from members?
I would propose that we conclude now with the resolutions. Because that's the end of the meeting then, isn't it?
Okay, I was crossing fingers that I'll get someone that says that. Okay, the department can leave us. You are free to go, Minister. Member Herren, resolution from you?
Chairperson, the only resolution I would have is if we could get the detailed plans for the densification of the 3 locations. And we saw some of the slides for the Dunoon, but it would be good to get the same kind of detail for the Silvertown project, and I think the other one was the Kosovo project.
Yeah. Okay, can I add to that with the cost implications?
Yes, please.
Okay. Shamiz, you have captured that. Member America?
That's right, yes, I have that down.
Okay.
Chair? Yeah?
Yeah.
For sure.
Pardon, Member America, do you have any resolution?
No, not at all. Thank you.
Okay. Member Andrikas?
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, struggling to unmute. Chair, I would just like us to adopt that we will continuously monitor these developments, and that we don't, just leave it here. That we also look at the process going forward. And then secondly, I myself would really like us to go on a site visit to those areas where apparently this similar model has already been implemented, and just to see for ourselves whether the management of the land and etc. is still of such a nature that there is no urban decay, etc. So two things. The first one is for us to continuously monitor, particularly these developments. And then secondly, if once we're able to move around again as a committee, to perhaps conduct an oversight to similar developments.
Okay. Thank you very much, Member Andrikas. Member Smith?
I'm fine, Chair. I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I think if we can also add to with the implementation schedules, the dates, so that we don't have a blank check of we can still talk about this for the coming years. So we need to know by when what is going to happen, since Minister also indicated some of the challenges of other departments that are involved, that the delays that are happening. So if we can also ask sort of a business plan, I don't know, Shimiz, you will have to help us to put that question to know when is going, what is going to happen when, and who is responsible for what.
Okay, I'll do so.
Okay. Members, is that all? Okay.
And we must still adopt the documents, Ms. Maseko?
Yes, I wanted to hear about the resolutions that we have. Members, can we, if we agree with those resolutions, can we agree to them?
Agree.
Yes.
Okay.
Agreed, Chair.
You received the draft minutes of the proceedings. Shimiz, are you the one who's have the control, Lizette?
Controlling chairperson, good day, members. It is the minutes reflecting now of the 12th of February.
Okay. Can we have the, can we adopt, or is there any amendment that members see that we have to do? Members? Member Andrikas, Member Smith, Member America.
I propose that we adopt the minute, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Is that all, Shimiz?
Chairperson, there's still the minutes of the 12th of March and the Standing Committee on Human Settlements annual activities report.
Yeah, can we have that on the screen?
12th of March is reflecting, Member Maseko.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, over to you.
Chair, I propose that we adopt the minutes.
Thank you very much, Member.
I second that, Chair.
Thank you, Member America. Can we get another one, Member Lizette? Now I said Member Lizette. Can we get that, Lizette? Okay, that's the report.
This is the oversight report.
Chair.
The oversight,
not the oversight report, Lizzie.
No.
The annual
Chairperson.
activities.
Sorry, yeah.
Chairperson, I just noticed that there was a proposal to adopt the minutes of the 12th. Is there a second for that, Chair? Just one clarity. Thank you.
The proposal to adopt the minutes of the? I didn't hear you, member.
I seconded the chair. I second the adoption. Honourable Smith.
Yeah.
No. You were member America was a proposer to adopt the minutes of the 12th of February, I think, but there was no second.
Okay, you're right.
Chair, my understanding is that the rules of the Western Cape doesn't really require of us.
Yeah, we don't need to have a second member. As long as we adopt it and there's no one who's refusing the adoption of those minutes.
Thank you, Chair. No problem.
I will add my vote to it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Member Andrikas. Okay, the annual report, our annual report, can we have a look at it, Lizette? Can you scroll it? I take it, members, you have looked at it. Is there any amendment you want us to do on the report?
Yes, yeah, Chair. In terms of the attendance of meetings, I would appreciate it if we could indicate the various members' attendance, because we're not sure, who attended which meeting and what the circumstances are if they don't attend those meetings. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Chairperson, through you, that will not reflect in the annual activities report. Our quarterly reports will indicate which meetings were attended by which members. At our next meeting, we will be adopting the 4th quarterly report, and that should have that information in as per your request, member.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Member
Thank you.
America, are you happy with that, or you want us to also put it here?
That's okay. I'll go along with that. Thank you.
Okay. Can we adopt the report if there's no any other addition that is
I
needed?
propose that we adopt the report.
Okay, thank you very much.
I second
Thank you,
that.
member. Okay, thank you, Member America. That is appreciated. Shamiz, over to you.
Okay, so the resolutions that I have is 3. The one says the committee requests that the Department of Human Settlements provided with a detailed plan for the 3 locations earmarked for de-densification, namely Silvertown, Kosovo, and also provide the cost implications. And then the second one is that the department provide with a continuous report on their developments, and that the committee also conduct oversight on those developments or similar developments. And then the third one is they should provide us with a report on their implementation schedules, by when it's going to happen, a detailed business plan that gives a detailed description of start and end time. I will send out that to all members, and then members can come back to me if there's any additions or changes they'd like to bring about.
Chair,
yeah, member.
Can I just, on the second one, my request was not for the department to, continuously report on this, but if we as a committee could say every 6 months,
monitoring,
review the development and obviously then ask the department to come and present to us what the progress has been since our last engagement on these specific projects. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, member. Okay, is that all? Shamiz?
Yes, Chairperson, that is all that I have for today. As I said, I will send through the resolutions to all the members today still, and then they can provide any feedback on the resolutions.
Okay. Then the next meeting, members, that we are going to have is it's 12 o'clock about the cluster B visit week, and it's going to take us, I think, less than 5 minutes. It's just to do the procedure of making sure that we adopt that report to send it to the House. Is there anything else that members wants to comment about before we close the meeting?
All good, Chair. Thanks.
Done. Thank you.
Okay, I think it's a wrap. Shamis, thank you very much. Lizette, Tafsir, we are nothing without you guys. Thank you very much. And the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, members.